Pick a page and tell us if I read it.
Oh, can I talk about the moon?
Yes.
Actually,
when I say there's factual stuff in the book,
yeah,
it sounds kind of dreary, but the fact is I learned so damn much about the weight of the Earth, the moon, why things have to be.
Yeah.
1 million things have to have happened the way they did
but that's,
for the solar system and the
yes, but here's what I love. People always posit this false problem between faith and science, and I think, look, first of all, that's nonsense. Anyone who says that doesn't really understand what science is and certainly doesn't understand what faith is. And then not only is there not this big problem between faith and science, but science, to some large extent, can lead you to faith, or it can certainly lead you in that direction. And the story of the moon and all this stuff, I guess the main thing, I talk about the so-called fine-tuned universe. Right. This is what scientists are saying. This is not theologians and pastors. This is scientists talk about how, I mean, there are two issues. First, there's one chapter I have on the life on Earth and how difficult it is to create a planet where life could exist. Now, I think because we're here breathing, we kind of think, well, what's the big deal? You know, since I've been born, it's been pretty easy to breathe and stuff. And, you know, I have never been tempted to go to another planet. But at the same time, you know, it's just something we take for granted. And who wouldn't take it for granted? But then you start looking at it and you go, this is freaky. This is really, really freaky that there's life on Earth, and it's not, you know, it's not like there's plenty other planets where this can happen. And the more science we know, this is what I love, the more science we know, the more impossible it is to believe that any planet in the vast universe should be able to support life. I mean, that's a freaky thing. And I didn't really know that until I did the research for the book.
I didn't either. I didn't know how many things had to fall into place. Now, so the Big Bang Theory is what to go with, right?
Well, I would say so. There's some people who don't subscribe to that. By the way, today in the Amazon comment section, there were three reviews of my book, and one referred to the Big Band Theory.
Oh yeah.
And
like Stan Kenton and
yes,
right. I loved him.
That's right. That's right. Most people don't know that Tommy Dorsey dabbled in astrophysics. But anyway, but the Big Bang Theory. In fact, actually, getting back to this idea of the fine-tuned universe, it was Fred Hoyle, who I guess he was doing a BBC interview in 1953, who coined the term Big Bang. He just kind of, you know, came up with the idea of this Big Bang, and that's where we get the term. But Fred Hoyle was an atheist who was freaked out by this fine-tuning, and he said that, as far as he was concerned, the universe looked like what he described it as a put-up job. It couldn't just have happened. Now, this is somebody who would know. You know, the rest of us, I think we have to take it on faith, so to speak.
Right.
But it's just an extraordinary thing that you have physicists saying this couldn't have just happened. It doesn't make sense. But if they're so uncomfortable with the idea of a creator God, they try to concoct ways out of it, right? And the most ridiculous one, maybe the only one, but that you really hear over and over these days, is the multi-universe theory, the multiverse theory. That, oh, well, of course, there's an infinity of universes out there. We can't see them. We have no evidence, but they've got to be there, right? And wrong. And surely one of them must have everything perfectly fine-tuned, and we just happen to be in that one right now. Isn't that great?
That's
and
wonderful.
That gets you out of it, you know. But I thought, that's so crazy. But yes, I think that to me is extraordinary, that scientists are saying that it's kind of spooky. It's kind of challenging my lack of faith. In fact, I want to mention the moon. I didn't know this, and this is nuts. You know, we all have heard of the moon. Anybody unfamiliar with the moon? The moon.
Someone from New Jersey hasn't heard of it. Put your shoes on and get the hell out of here.
A lot of
Jackie Leonard.
I was hoping you were going to bring up Jackie Leonard, especially when you start talking about Cheney.
Go ahead.
Jackie Leonard. Okay, so can I talk about the moon? The moon, but I didn't know this, and I find it funny because we're talking about the moon. We're not talking about Neptune or something. It's the moon, like we all know about the moon, right? But if you say to somebody, hey, how did the moon form? Most people, myself included, would say, I don't know. Like, we don't really know, or we have some idea that it congealed from, something. We don't know. Well, as happens, right, scientists know more and more and more. So when I was in grade school, they weren't so sure. But now they seem to have settled on a theory. And this is the theory. And this is insane, except scientists are saying that this happened. A giant turtle. I take that back. That's the Inuit version. I take it back. I'm sorry. Sorry. That could have happened. Who are we to say? They say that this is what happened. The Earth was created. Okay, the Big Bang happened 13.8 billion years ago. 4.5 billion years ago, the Earth was formed, right? Becomes something. But it wasn't as big as the Earth is now. It was maybe 2/3 of the size. So let's call it the Earth is sitting there 4.5 billion years ago. Right. 250 million years later, an object collides with the Earth. Now, you have to think about this. If you know anything about space, you know that planets and stars are so far apart from each other that galaxies can literally pass through each other with almost no collisions. That's how far apart planets are. Okay, so you get that picture, and then you realize that, okay, 4.5 billion years ago, the Earth is floating around out there, and a body about the size of Mars begins a journey from the infinite depths of outer space. And that journey goes on hundreds of millions of years until it collides absolutely perfectly with the Earth. Now, it's something like a billion times more difficult to imagine than if we stood on opposite sides of the Grand Canyon, fired guns, and then the bullets went bink and dropped into the canyon, just perfectly. That's what scientists say happened. And when that happened, the proto-Earth, the early Earth, had an atmosphere 40 times thicker than it is now. So trying to breathe, it would be like breathing sand. I don't know if you ever tried that. I don't recommend it. And when that collision happened, it was such a perfect collision that thick atmosphere was blasted into outer space. So we have 1/40 of the atmosphere, the very atmosphere that we're breathing as we sit here. And it made life on Earth possible. It made it possible for sunlight to touch the surface of the Earth. And that's how the moon formed. And I read that and I thought, you're telling me that this just happened and that we wouldn't be here if that hadn't happened exactly perfectly? I'm convinced, logically, it takes far more faith to believe that just happened randomly and here we are than it does to say God created the universe and put us here. I actually think logically, it doesn't mean you can prove anything, but the facts seem to lead me to think that way.